Oh, see.
How are you?
Good, you?
Good.
This is
Hello.
a young lady, Kelly. She walks around with that mask all the time. I think she's gonna rob me.
Yeah, mask with flowers on it. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very intimidating.
I'm scared again.
So go to participants and then Shawn Hardy, I think if you can right click.
I'm gonna left click and see what's up.
Yeah.
Go over here.
That would be to turn off his video.
This is to unmute.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it down here?
Where are the settings?
Right here, claim host.
Click share screen. Where's that? This is different than what? Oh, you should have told me share screen. The green thing, it's going to share your screen, but
Yeah.
host disabled participant share screening. Okay, so click that, click share screen again, click OK, and then share screen.
Don't I have to go over here and claim host?
Oh, are you not the host right now? Claim host.
No, I haven't seen that before.
Are you logged into, oh, you know what? Are you logged into the KW Zoom?
No, I clicked on when it was on the what they send out every morning for the Zoom calls.
Yes.
And you click the number.
So do you remember you should go into the KW login so that means that you're the host?
I'm gonna back right out totally.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Now go to participants. More. Make co-host. And then yes. And he should be able to share now.
You could share. I haven't done it before, but I think you have for the other meetings. Oh, you with me, Shawn? Am I talking? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And yeah, I just looked. It lets me do it.
All right,
Perfect.
cool.
All right. Good luck. I'll be on.
All right, we'll see what we have for participants. If it's only us because of some changes, we're done. But if there's gonna be others that I've talked with, a couple of the people that had the most interest got wound up in another meeting at the moment, so we'll see how long they're gonna be there. How you doing?
All right.
Yeah, good.
I'm shooting from here to Holbrook Town Hall for that Maple Ave thing.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had something. Well, they got
It's with Tim Doherty. We're meeting some of the planning guys out there. They're trying to do cost savings, so they're trying to eliminate curbing and things like that.
they're trying to do, so you're going there to do for my subdivision?
No, Tim Doherty, Maple.
Oh, Maple. I thought you said Maplewood. I was trying to figure out what I missed because I'm in court because of Conley.
Oh, Maple. Yeah, Maplewood. I forgot about that. Yeah, no, this is Maple with Tim Doherty. the they're going to bid, and they got the construction company working with the architect trying to find cost savings. So they're trying to strip out curbing and do all kinds of stuff. And I said, the Holbrook Planning Boards are pretty reasonable and friendly people. If you go and talk to them first, do not just go thinking you have the right to do that without running it by them.
Yeah. Where do they do most of their work? Quincy?
I think so, yeah.
I wonder what those fellows get paid being a nonprofit. Probably too much.
Yeah, probably that's why there's no profit.
Exactly.
High salaries.
That's how they do it. I mean, I remember the meeting saying the only way things like this get done or projects like this get done if it's nonprofit. I'm trying to figure out. That statement was made more once by Tim, that the only way this works is if nonprofits come in and do it.
Yeah.
I had to stop from smiling when I heard that, thinking that's. I wonder where they got all the money to buy it if they didn't have the money to construct it. Do you know where that came from? Because they don't use their own money, basically. If they're a nonprofit, I wouldn't think they can have $1 million sitting around to go purchase it.
Well, they went through a round of funding at the state.
Yeah. That's got to be a heavy laden paperwork type of business, being a nonprofit asking money from the state.
I would think.
A lot of that is grant money.
Yeah. That's why it got pushed. I mean, they're just now going, I mean, it's been permitted 2 years now or more.
Do they have to go back in front of the planning board again to get it extended after a certain date?
They can ask, they send a letter and ask.
I know that Conley, their attorneys aren't doing anything. We're kind of in that limbo that we're hoping the judge just says, the attorney that was working for her, that firm, the attorney in the firm left. Then they said they were passing it off to another attorney, but didn't do it in a timely fashion. So many days have passed since we gave our interrogatories, I think it's called, back to them to review, and they didn't get back to us in time. So we're asking for them to like throw it out. It's baseless.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is. It's nonsense, so
Hopefully that happens. And we can, there'll be a lot going on if that happens. That'll be good though, that and the school at the same time. I just have to make sure she doesn't try to bust me on, or try to every time you pull a building permit, because she can go after that too.
yeah, but I mean, at some point, how much money does she have to just keep hiring attorneys?
No. See, somebody bought that property at the end of Union Street in Weymouth. It went under agreement finally.
Oh, really?
A couple of weeks back, yeah.
That's interesting.
It's a difficult, unusual piece.
I looked, I don't know that you can, I mean, I think you could get one more in there, just the way it was, but they don't really give variances now.
Yeah, you're only supposed to have 40, you have to have what, 40 foot of frontage, and it has to open up to 120.
Yeah,
Go back at 120 for 20 feet behind the house, then it can shrink again.
yep.
But I think it would shrink before you get back to that point where it really shrunk itself, the lot, and then it opens up in the rear.
It would be tight.
We'll give everybody a little more time that's going to come on.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Morning, Tom. How are you?
Good, yourself.
Excellent, thanks for asking.
Hi again.
Hello, Ms. Bucher. Hi,
Hello, Steve.
Missy.
I'm at
Hi,
the bank,
Flora.
so I'm just gonna put it on. I'll come back when I'm walking out the door.
I didn't know you wore that mask at home, Kristen.
I'm at the bank.
So you wear the pink one at the bank?
Yeah, she's holding the bank up.
I know, I used to go in the bank with these things and I got in trouble for it. No, now you can walk with it all the time,
Because you look like a hoodlum.
right? Hey, you're not gonna get anywhere with kudos with me, you know. It's not gonna happen.
Yes, I will.
I know.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Melissa.
Good morning, Melissa.
Morning.
Barbara wants one.
Shawn, Missy, Melissa is gonna be helping me with our sign out front. We gotta go in front of a signboard for the town of Braintree.
Oh,
Something new, right?
yeah. Have fun with that.
She's the lead person. I'm just backing off, gonna watch this one.
Thanks. Thanks. Thanks.
Although last night I did get the okay, 2 nights ago for, finally got the okay to put people in a building in Abington.
Oh, that's good. That's progress.
Took a while. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes just to let those that might be jumping on, jump on. If anybody has questions, you can get them ready. Shawn, you know Kristen Sticky was asked to leave the town of Braintree?
Yes, I
Yeah, yeah.
knew that.
We'll get to 10:05 and then we'll start. Hopefully everybody has their notepads ready.
Thanks for the warning. Ready.
Okay.
Born ready.
All right. Thanks everybody for showing up. I have with us today Mr. Shawn Hardy. He's with Hardy and Mann. They're located in Weymouth on Washington Street. I'll let him fill in the blanks because I don't remember the address. And Shawn, if you want to give us a quick background on your business, how many years you've been in business, your place of business, and then you can slightly give us an idea of what it entails and who may use your services the most.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. As Steve said, my name's Shawn Hardy. I'm a professional civil engineer with Hardy and Mann Design Group. We're at 1285 Washington Street in Weymouth. Together with my partner, Chi Mann, we have over 25 years of experience each in civil engineering, site design, and permitting. Generally, wetland permitting, or subdivisions, or anything site related. If someone's doing a proposed addition or change in utilities, things like that. We get involved in that, zoning filings, anything just kind of land related, permitting wise and site design. I think that's what you had in mind, right, Steve?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's kind of like drinking out of a fire hose because there's little areas you can keep breaking that down. So here's a
Yeah.
couple of questions before we get into showing somebody what a plan looks like. And we'll make it simple because there's different steps in the process. It could be, as you said, if somebody's putting an addition on, you might have to show them what the addition may be in a plan. That would be given to the building department and they could review it. And then there could be a subdivision, which is a larger parcel that gets subdivided into groups of lots. And then, of course, some of the different aspects of permitting. Shawn did mention wetlands, areas that might not have wetlands, areas that do. Shawn, if you had wetlands, are there other groups that come in to help you work with that as far as flagging the wetlands, and what does that person do? And what does it entail, and who are they?
Yes, we work with, a botanist would go and they determine where wetlands are based on soil conditions and mainly plants. They're looking for certain wetland indicator plants, and they would go and flag, meaning physically hang flags on a property to delineate where that wetland is. Surveyor would come in and, when existing conditions plan, locate where those wetlands are, and as well as any other site features, and before they handed it off to us for any proposed work.
So the question is, let's just work with somebody that wanted to put an addition on a house to simplify it. You have an idea that what the outside of the lot is, and then you start to work with the setbacks of the town. And then just describe a little bit how much room, just give us for instance, a town you might work within and how it's going to work and how much room somebody may have to put an addition on. And if they don't meet that requirement to set within the setbacks, what do you have to do then?
Okay. Yeah, so each town is different. They have their own zoning code or zoning bylaw. And in it, it tells you, the town is broken into zones, hence the term zoning. So, and that defines what can and can't go in an area. And based on what your zone is, they would have a table, a use table or a density table that tells you, for instance, how big a lot needs to be, how wide it needs to be. But then they also break it down further that a building or a structure needs to be a certain distance back from the front lot line or the roadway. It needs to be a certain distance, usually like 20 feet or something like that off the road. Then it would need to be off the sidelines. That's generally a little smaller in the 10 to 15 foot range. And then they also have a rear setback that you can't build within, generally, again, that 20 to 30 feet on a rear lot line. And that is to keep you from, I guess, it keeps building in check. It's a way of a town to have some control over, large development or encroaching into neighbors' personal space type thing, and oversized buildings tend to generate extra runoff, impervious area, lack of green space. So they try to limit that with the zoning code.
Now, what if that addition they want to put on can only be 8 feet by 4 feet, and they want to make it 12 by 10 feet, and they have to meet the setbacks? What happens if their addition is bigger than what the town allows you to do?
If that happens, you can go and make an application to the zoning board of appeals. Every town has one. And it's a formal filing. It's a process. There are board members that sit, they either are elected or appointed depending on the town. And they meet fairly regularly, and you go in, you're supposed to show some sort of a hardship if you're asking for a variance to the zoning bylaw. They generally say soil shape or topography is what they're supposed to be looking at is what they call hardships. Soil meaning a soil condition like a wetland, if, you know, if you have a wetland on your property and you can't build in that direction, but if you did, you could meet zoning, then you say, well, I have to build over here in violation of zoning, so you ask for a variance. Topography, like if it's a steep lot, soil also if there's rock or ledge, and then shape, if the lot's kind of, it's an existing lot, it's been in existence, but it has a funny shape to it, and therefore the setbacks are a little funny, they look at that too. So you can ask, and it's a variance to the zoning, and then they would hopefully issue you that variance, and then you could build. Sometimes with conditions, and sometimes they can deny it.
Okay, now do you prepare the plan and then will you, or can you be hired to go in front of the board as a representative for the owner to discuss what they're trying to do?
We can certainly prepare those plans. We do at times represent applicants before zoning boards. Sometimes depending on the town, some towns are a little more formal and you'd want legal representation to get you through some of those processes and make sure that, you know, all the i's are dotted and t's crossed. We also represent people at planning boards and conservation commissions as well. So we do that work.
Okay. So at this point, and everybody just hold on to your questions, we'll get a little further along. Can you show us a couple of plans you might have? Can you put them up online and then
Yes.
describe a little bit? And I think you might have one on Kingsley in the
Correct.
town of Holbrook, if you want to try to use that one. And that you can discuss a little bit what went on behind that plan and why it had to go to the zoning board, and any questions somebody may have in regards to the setbacks. And they, at the bottom, you can see the dimensional requirements that Shawn was talking about. So if you want to take it from there, Shawn, and just go over that plan. Can everybody see that? Can you blow it up on your screen yourselves?
I need my glasses.
There you go.
A property in Holbrook, as Steve said, Kingsley Street. So the black in the background here, there was an existing house. Somebody purchased it and they wanted to demolish it. They wanted to add a new house. So the proposed house is in the blue here. You can see the setbacks highlighted. And down here is what we talked about. So this is the dimensional requirements. So this is in a residential 3 zone. And this column lists the requirements. So it needs 20,000 square foot of area, needs 125 feet of frontage. You know, and then here are those setbacks. Front is 25, side is 15, and rear is 25. This column lists what the existing building was. And here is what the proposed is. And you can see here, down on this rear setback, they are required, it says, to have 25, and you, over here, you can see there's a proposed that it's a 22. So this, though, you can notice that the lot, generally when you're looking at a lot, you think of a square or a rectangle. You can see that this lot is on 2 streets. So it would technically have 2 front setbacks, and then you can see it's kind of got an irregular shape. So that would be the type of hardship that you would go forth and ask for a variance to zoning to ask you to be closer to those lot lines. And ideally, you know, get that variance because of, you know, it's a strange circumstance that it's fronts on 2 streets, and you can see that it's not necessarily a rectangle or an evenly shaped lot. You can also see that the area is supposed to be 20,000 square feet, and at some point in time, that lot was approved and it's only 9,125. So that's another thing that doesn't comply with the zoning, but you'd go forward and ask for the variance.
Just for disclosure purposes, this is a property I purchased, and Shawn has done the work with another group called Hoyt. They work together. In that the house that was outlined by Shawn, the older home, there was an accident there, so the house had to come down. It was removed. And since the lot was the zoning back, and whenever this loan was created, somewhere in the 60s, the existing 9,125 square feet back then was a legal lot in that area. Over the years, the town has decided that the lot should be 20,000 square feet. If it were to be a newer subdivision where a larger piece of land would be subdivided, they would want every lot to be 20,000 square feet. So due to the irregularity of what we've done here, we met the setbacks, we didn't have the area, and the new home wasn't being built exactly in the same footprint. So by that happening, we had to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just before we go any farther, is there any questions on how the setbacks are found? And it is a little different that it's on that it fronts on two streets.
Yeah, quick question, Steve, actually. The term variance, how do you guys use that word? What does that actually even mean? It's like, it's measurements, is that correct?
You want to take that, Shawn?
Yeah, so down here in this table, you can see, so there's dimensional requirements. So there's certain measurements or areas that are required per the zoning bylaw. And
Okay.
the term variance means it's that you want to vary from, you want to deviate from that requirement somehow, some way. So that's where the term variance comes from. You're looking to do something that deviates from that requirement.
Okay. Mhm.
You're kind of looking to break the rules, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
We don't want to do what you're saying we can do here. We want to ask you if we can do something different. Can you help us break the rules? And Shawn described a little bit of why those rules could be broken. Soil, shape, and topography are the three. Sometimes it's a little more than that, but and even sometimes it could be less. It depends on what you're trying to do. You just can't have it be more detrimental to the neighborhood by making a change versus what may be there now. Or if you're not putting an addition on the house, you're not going to be taken away from the neighbors. Does that make sense, Vasily?
It does. So variance, you use the term variance when you kind of want to restructure what's allowed, basically.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, Shawn, I got another question. This would be helpful too. Once the new house is constructed and we can still use Kingsley here, how do you know that the property is being built in the right spot? You know, this has all been okayed by the zoning board, but the zoning board nor the building inspector doesn't know if the builder put it in the correct areas. What happens after the house is constructed?
Right, so generally it's a good idea before construction to have the surveyor go out and lay out exactly where the building is supposed to go. And then the majority of the time, the building inspector, after it's constructed, requires the surveyor to go out, take specific measurements and submit an as-built plan that calls out and confirms whether these dimensions were actually met or not. If not, then, your options are back to the zoning board to ask forgiveness, or you're going to have to make it right.
And making it right would be very expensive because the foundation is in.
Correct.
So it'd be that'd be difficult. So it needs to be, when it's constructed, it has to be right on, because if you can see, some of these setbacks are could be very close to what they need to be.
Right.
Within sometimes inches, 6-7 inches. So you have to have it right on. Have you ever had that happen, Shawn, when it's off by a foot, 2 feet,
Yeah.
it might be within, you have?
Yeah, it's
That's not fun.
it's not, again, it's hopefully whoever's building it has the surveyor and is working closely with the surveyor and has them out a few times along the way to make sure, because there have been times that somebody's gone and made some assumptions and built something and found themselves in trouble that they were, significantly off. And,
Mhm.
the town does not have to let you get away with that either. They can say no and go tear it out and start over. And I've seen that happen.
So something that we go through as agents that we don't even know when it's happening is part of the process of financing. Of course, is that the person that's going to purchase the house has a job, can finance the property, and then that the house appraises. But there's also times when either a surveyor or an engineer goes out to make sure that everything was in the lot lines. Do you do that too, Shawn? Is that something within your purview? What do they do when they send somebody like you to go out there to make sure that the house is within the lot lines, there's no encroachments, either from a neighboring property or from your property on a neighbor's?
Yeah, so that's mortgage survey is what you're referring to. That would generally be a surveyor. That's not us. A professional engineer isn't really supposed to certify property lines, but they do go out. It's not they don't set up. I know sometimes you guys see people set up at the side of the road with a transit or whatever, the survey equipment. Generally, a mortgage survey is a tape measure that they're kind of just roughly finding boundaries and making sure that the house is generally on the lot and that there's not a big, encroachment or something funny going on. And there's also a note on it that says it's not really certifying property line. It's just a general note. It gives the bank a level of comfort that what they're financing is something that, doesn't have, the rear deck isn't in the neighbor's yard or vice versa. That could be a liability later down the line.
All right. Anybody have questions on this particular plan right here? Anybody, can you see the blue areas that show you where the setbacks are? Does everybody understand what they are in front of you?
Yeah, I do have a question for you, Shawn. In looking at the existing structure, let's just say you're buying this home, the house is really in poor condition and needs to be torn down. The proposed plan won't meet any of the zoning requirements, but could you build on the existing footprint of the old home, even though it's no longer meeting the building code because the requirements have changed? Could you build on the existing footprint without any problems?
Generally, yes. I say generally because there are circumstances that, something is very close out of whack to these setbacks or something that the town might want to try and push you in another direction. But for the most part, if you are within the same footprint and they say not more non-conforming, it's a mouthful to say, but if you're not more non-conforming, they generally will let you build in the same footprint, as long as you meet the other requirements about height and things like that.
Okay, so that would be an option if your new proposed design didn't meet any of the zoning requirements. You could go back to maybe looking at building on the original footprint.
Yes.
Thanks.
Isn't there a caveat to that, Shawn, that there would have to be a reason that the existing structure would have to be removed before you can build on that footprint again?
Not always. I think there's ways around it. I mean, sometimes it depends on the town again, but generally it's allowed. I mean, sometimes they might make you, wink, wink, leave one wall up or something like that so that you're technically not demolishing the structure. There's ways around it. It's just they generally have a hard time saying you can't rebuild in the same footprint as long as you're in the same footprint.
The term is conforming, non-conforming, which is confusing in itself. But once you understand what conforming, non-conforming means, like this is a non-conforming site, but it's conforming because it was years ago, the zoning allowed somebody to build on this site this size. And then and as you can see, the new building, other than the deck, it was gonna make all the setbacks.
Zeb, just out of curiosity, this torn down structure, a slab foundation?
It was,
It was.
it's not now.
I know the area, so I was curious.
Yep.
I can see why you would not want to build on the existing foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, if you had seen this house previously, if you're looking at from Kingsley Street and you see the old structures design and it bumps out in the front a little bit,
Mhm.
and that section I think was set back 20 feet. That was at one time, somebody put an addition on that house.
Mhm.
It would have been just straight across a rectangle.
Mhm.
So as they do a lot in those homes, somebody took the garage area, made it into living space, and then put that addition on, facing it from Kingsley, the right front, and made that into another garage. So they may have gone to the zoning board way back when to do that, unless they could have met the setbacks at the time.
Mhm.
You can see you can see in the back, it says stockade fence.
Mhm.
You see that? So that means that everything is on here. There's a fence right there that says stockade. There's another fence to the right that says stockade.
Out front and on either side.
Yep. Right, there was on the sides, you can even see it talks about a driveway. There used to be a U driveway in the front. See where it says bituminous drive? That was all driveways. So when they go out, the surveyors, civil engineers go out, everything gets put on this plan. If you see the smaller lines, let's start from the corner of Kingsley, just follow that K and go across to the lot line. It might say 96. You see where it says 96? Then it goes up to 97. And then it goes up to 99 at one point, 98, 99.
Even on
This is probably better for Shawn to describe because it's in his purview, but go ahead, Shawn, if you want to tell him what that is.
Yeah, so those are contours that denotes topography or elevation. So you can see that out here on Kingsley where the driveway meets, it's at elevation 96, but up here at the house, the land sits 3 feet higher at 99. So that, in back here, it's at 100. So that tells you which way the land's sloping. And if you start getting into proposed work, we as the civil engineers have to keep our eyes on that to meet grading requirements and slopes of driveways to make them comfortable to drive on, things like that. So that's why that's all shown on an existing conditions plan.
This one even showed the house in the back lot line. It was in between two, right on the lot line, right near that shed.
Yeah.
There was a tree there which has been removed. You have another slide you want to show us, Shawn? Something that might be a little more, I don't know, you have something you subdivided a lot, anything along those lines?
Yeah, so let me go here. So this is, again, you see Hoyt Land Surveying, so the surveyor went out and prepared this plan. So this is the existing conditions plan. It doesn't show anything on it. This is 54 Cochado Road in Braintree. So this is a fairly large lot. It exists. You can see down here an existing dwelling. They had a tennis court, a garage building out here. You can also see these lines again, the contours down here at the road. It's about elevation 94 on this side, way over here. There's a lot of slope on this. It's up like 100 here. And in the back, it goes up to, 100 and elevation 113 to the rear of the lot. So, there's more than 10 feet of slope from the front of that lot to the back of that lot, almost 20 feet. But the person who bought this purchased it, looked at it and said, wow, that's a pretty big lot. It's got almost 300 feet of frontage, which is the front lot line there. So 300 feet there. And it's got, significant amount of area. So they asked us to see per the zoning, what could they possibly fit on here and subdivide this lot. So we did a draft of that. So this is that same plan minus the contours for the topography, but you can see here, so the existing house is down here to remain, but we drew some other lot lines, these dark lines here, in an effort to divide this property and meet, you know, each lot needs a certain amount of frontage out on the street. Each lot here in Braintree needs to have a certain width that it has to meet. Each lot needs a certain area. So this is a building permit plan, but if I can zoom in here, that's not in. So you can see over here, this is the requirements, and you remember that table from the other plan. So the minimum lot area is 15,000 square feet. Each lot needs 50 feet of frontage. Where the building is, it has to be 100 feet wide and 100 feet deep. They need to be 20 feet from the front street line, 10 feet from the sidelines, and 30 feet from the rear line. So we divided or showed a way to divide that existing lot into 4 lots, each with, you can see, various 23 up to 27,000 square feet, each with the minimum frontage, each with the minimum width, each with the minimum depth. What's missing from this table is this was, you know, you can now see that we started to show some proposed houses, but this was then created a formal, this was subdivided. You know, this is, you can see over here, this is lot 1 that's over here. Lot 4 is where the house remained. Lot 2 with a long driveway, and we show a proposed house, and these lines here show where that building is allowed to go to meet those setbacks. They're labeled the 30-foot rear, the 10-foot side. And over here is lot 3. You can see they kind of long and narrow and then get wider at certain distances. That's so that that width term in Braintree, the lot width has to be 100 feet. And the definition of that is it's basically parallel to the roadway line, but it has to be 100 feet wide at the front of the building and still be 100 feet wide or more, 20 feet behind the building. So that's this. So that's why some of the irregular shapes, but it's a way to get around it. But I mean, you can see that this one lot, now granted, it's a fairly large lot. Certainly, you know, it was over, you got 4 lots at 25,000 plus. So it was a significantly large lot, but it had existed for a long, long time. And someone bought it and was savvy enough to know, based on the zoning code, hey, I think there's some more that we could do here. And then so they gave it to us and kind of come up with this layout. At least 2 of these have been constructed, I believe. And there's, you know, I just swapped it just to show. So there's another house here and you can see the proposed for this. I don't know that this one's gotten underway yet. But like I said, at least these 2 have gone under construction, and the third being permitted, all while maintaining the existing house and not having to demolish it. So this was an interesting one that certainly somebody, I'm guessing whoever sold it didn't know what they were sitting on, and whoever saw it to buy it, you know, knew enough to do some research, and you can clearly see that they turned this into a lot more than just one single house.
So if somebody purchased this, let's say they paid 800, each lot that they may have sold could be $300 to $350 a lot.
Yeah, in
They still-
Braintree, a buildable lots over 3, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and they still have the house and an additional lot number 1 to the left.
Right.
So somebody got 3 lots out of one large parcel and kept the house. And it's the reason that some people call this, just for slang terms, a pork chop lot. meaning it's set behind another house.
Yeah.
But the zoning in Braintree allows that, because if you go back up to the dimensional requirements, you only need 50 foot of frontage to start. And then it has to open up larger in front of the house,
Right.
which is what Shawn was talking about. You have to have so many feet across the front of the house. And that distance across the front of the house has to stay a certain size for another so many feet behind the house before it can shrink again.
Right.
That's why if you're driving down the street and you're looking for an address and you can't seem to find it, and all of a sudden there's a mailbox with a small address and just a driveway, and then it goes back. That was probably created by the house out front might have had a big piece of land, and then all of a sudden they subdivided it and got a second lot in the back. You'll see that throughout a lot of towns. And it's really significant because 50 foot of frontage is not a lot. So if that house had just, let's see, what do you need for, if you had 100 foot of frontage, but then it opened up in the back, you can get a couple houses. People don't even, homeowners may not realize what they're sitting on. Is probably what I'm getting at. And it's for us to tell them what they're sitting on. They might be pretty happy if they know they can subdivide a lot and get $350,000 for that piece of property. I think they'd be willing to pay you a commission if they understood that. And then, as I said in the past, if you're an agent and you find lots like this that could be subdivided, you'd sell the lot, get a commission, and you sell a new house and get a commission. So you just got two commissions on one piece of property. So and a lot of agents don't understand that process. That's pretty much where I've made my living early on, is through new construction and learning about subdividing properties. Those contour lines, and I'm not trying to overspeak for Shawn, the ones that were on the previous page, if you want to go back to that, all right, you can see them at the bottom right here. You see how close they are from the start as they go up towards the house? That means that that's a steeper grade than, let's say, the one you saw on Kingsley that went up 4 or 5 feet by 30 or 40 feet. This one's going up 10 feet real quick. So that's a steeper grade in the front.
Right.
Why the contour lines are closer. And on the right-hand side, is this bushes on the right-hand side?
Over here's a tree line, yes.
That's a tree line. So that shows you a tree line right there. So you can see there's a lot of detail on the plans. You know, a lot of people asked, you know, as I have, that's pretty expensive plan I just purchased from somebody to do the work. But if you see the detail behind it, it takes a lot to get this. It has to be right. You can't have any mistakes on it. They have to find meets and bounds out there. They do a title rundown on it to make sure who owns the property, if there's any neighbors that own the property. There's a lot behind these plans. So. And those houses sold, I think, 1, 2, and 1, 3 over there on Conchedo, the two new houses that are up there now.
Yeah.
Oh, top right, you may want to talk about your symbol and line legend if you want to give a little insight on that.
Okay. So the details that the surveyor notes out there that are important to us as we go to design. So water gate, that's the shut off out in the street. The sewer manhole, certainly, that shows where the utilities are, utility pole. In addition to the contours, they might have a spot elevation where they take a specific shot. You know, they locate the walls, they tell us where any curbing is, and they tell us where the utility lines are. All of that is required if you're going to go and subdivide. So you can see down here on the actual plan, you know, you can see the sewer line out in the street. It calls out what those elevations are, the gas line, the other utilities, you know, the size of trees. All of those things are important if as you go forward, if you're going to do a project like this and subdivide it, because those are all things that the town, well, certainly you got to make sure the utilities work from the civil engineering side, but there's other requirements that the town has about, you know, removing certain trees, how steep slopes can be, you know, how much impervious area you can have, meaning driveways and size of buildings and things. So it has to be accurate and, you know, and precise to lay all that stuff out if anyone's proposing a project, because there are, in addition to those setback requirements that we showed, there are a bunch of other zoning requirements that are kind of hidden in there as well.
As an agent, a lot of this is a little more than you might need to know. To start with, what you want to find out, if you're looking at a piece of property, is what the frontage is. First, you want to know what the size of the property is, and then what you need if you're going to subdivide it. Everything else comes into play after the civil engineer gets involved. Contours can be changed. That's another element. The house on Kingsley, the new house now has a garage under. So when you come from the street, since I think there was a 5 or 6 foot difference, when you built the house down a little bit, now there's garages under. So by looking at a property at this point, I could look at one house and go, you know, if that house comes down, or if there's another house built, that's going to be perfect for this style house with the garage under. Then you have to build walls, what have you, but you'll understand more of what can be done with the property and how the house could set on the property. It's much more exciting in real estate if you don't understand this part of it. Everybody's chasing houses and expires and FSBOs, but if you get this going, you take it to another level pretty quick.
Well, yeah, like this one, like you said, Steve, right? I mean, this person bought this house and then kept the house, so didn't have any construction costs per se, could resell that house, and now can additionally sell 3 additional lots on that. So
Right.
from a real estate agent point of view, that's there's a lot of sales out there.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Steve? So as realtors out there in the field who aren't familiar with subdividing and redevelopment, it is very rare in Braintree that you would find a parcel this large that hasn't already been subdivided. So is there any rule of thumb where, as listing agents, we should be on the lookout for, oh, this particular lot is over X amount of square feet. Is there potential maybe to subdivide it? Like, is there any rule of thumb that you can suggest to us where we should be thinking about this for our homeowners so that we're not leaving $350,000 on the table?
The know your zoning, know the zoning for the town. You know, and then
That's a big book.
yeah, that's a start, right? But
Big
there's, you know, actually, I'm having a Kelly, Vasily, and I team. We're getting together for our team meeting, and then we're going to go over zoning together in the conference room. As Shawn had alluded to begin with, a lot of towns have different zonings for different parts of the town.
See if I can find it.
You can be in Holbrook, for instance, there's 20,000, I think 40 and 60,000 square foot lots. Now, I consider that a bit ridiculous that the town needs a 60,000 square foot lot. So that's going to be worked out at some point, I think reduced. But if you know those areas where those lots are that's set up like that, and you know that somebody has a 3-acre lot, and you're looking at it going, you've got something here, and you got more land than you might think. Sometimes land I've seen get passed down over the years until it's to a point now that being a builder at times and developer, I've learned that holding on to a piece of land for a period of time now gets very expensive. Years ago, it wasn't like that because the taxes weren't as high as they are. But I've sat on property for years and spent hundreds of thousands just paying taxes. So then you try to go make some money on it and you're a little, I don't want to say in the arrears, but not going to make as much because you sat on it. So builders don't sit on land as much as they used to. It just costs too much money in the taxes.
So that zoning, while it is a very thick book you mentioned, most towns, I won't say all, but see, this is Braintree.
Yeah.
It's on the website. So there's a table of dimensional and density regulations. This,
There you go.
so if you know what zone you're in, most towns have a page in their zoning, and you can see this looks pretty distinct. So you can generally flick through that big book and see it. And it lists, it's, you know, residence A has, I think we were residence B and the other ones. lot has to be 15,000 square feet. It gives all of those requirements. It's all in one place. And most towns have this in their zoning bylaw. So you find out just what zone a piece of property is, and you can flip to this table and get a quick rough estimate to see if you may or may not have something else at play.
I mean, I'll just, for instance, give you a quick, in Weymouth, they have a neighborhood zoning. It's a couple small streets down off of C Street. Literally, it says no frontage.
Wow.
You know, you're like, well, how does this? Now, of course, there's got to be some kind of frontage, or else it's going to be landlocked. And then there's sometimes no lot size. So that the reason it's like that is because it's congested already. It's very dense, and they kind of keep it that way. They're not going to handicap anybody. A lot of towns now, Holbrook did it. Abington has done this. Canton has done this. In Weymouth, they call their little squares, they have 4 zip codes in Weymouth. They call it village centers now. Where our office is a village center in the town of Weymouth. And Braintree did an overlay, or else where our office is, we would never be here. You could not build what's here today if it wasn't some changes that they've made. And the reason they're making changes is they want developers to come into the area and spend money in areas that they think was a little downtrodden and not getting enough action. And that's what they've done. So towns are making changes. They make it through the legislation in Boston, the state, and they want people to come in and spend some money. Holbrook's doing it. Abington's done it. If you go down some of the main streets in Abington, you'll see new buildings going up with commercial on the first floor and residential on the second and third. A lot of opportunities there for some of those old homes that people are sitting and going, what am I going to do with this big arc of a home on the main street? And they don't even know that those changes have occurred. So if you know what's going on, you start dialing up those neighborhoods, which I've done and bought properties because of it, you're going to be that further along. Any more questions for Shawn while he's on here? Bucher?
I have a question. Shawn, this is kind of random, but I mean, do you do these drawings for just kind of anyone? Like who's interested in building, like even if it's just a regular person who wants to build their next house?
Yeah, we have, various clients. We have, a one-off homeowner, but we have, real estate developers come to us fairly regularly. Some real estate agents or that come and say, hey, I think I got another one here. Can you spend a couple hours and tell me what we can put here? We can do that pretty regularly.
Okay.
In general, you can start with a concept for, somebody for a few hours or a few $100 to us can say, this is worth exploring further, or, this isn't really what you think it can be. And it's a good investment to get that information.
Mhm.
Anybody else have a question for Mr. Hardy?
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, that was awesome. I have a question in general, not necessarily for Mr. Hardy. So just elaborating on my earlier questions. So outside of, knowing the zoning codes or knowing the zoning lot size requirements. So as an agent who's going to a property for the first time to work with the seller, as a rule of thumb, so there's should be a couple of things I should be looking for. Know the zoning code before I get there, and note what does it look like when I get there in comparison to how big is this lot in comparison to what the zoning code says, so that there might be an opportunity for subdivision there. And maybe the second thing I should be looking for is knowing if this property lies within, I don't know, is it called an opportunity zone or a village designation where they're trying to rehab downtrodden properties? And maybe third, is this parcel much larger than what it's surrounded by residentially? And maybe this is my mind running, I'm sorry. And maybe fourth, maybe it's something like we see in the town of Rockland, where sort of abutting parcels have no continuity. You know, there can be like an apartment building next to a two-family, next to a series of single-family houses, next to like the post office. So where zoning seems to be inconsistent, or visually development of parcels seems to be inconsistent or varying, those are sort of maybe the 4 things we can be looking for. Does that make sense?
I think I just drank out of a fire hose there.
Yeah, sorry, that was my fire hose.
That's all right, but I can back into it a little bit. If you're looking at you see an apartment building and then you see some single families, you could be right on the zoning change line, or way back when, and I bet you that apartment building you look at, it's probably an older brick apartment building, was probably constructed prior to the town having anything as far as type of zoning they have today. That's why zoning came into purview, because people were putting up a building here and you'd be having your nice little ranch or your bungalow, and the next thing you know, the guy next door is a machine shop. And you're like, well, how does that fit? And there's a house on the other side. So that's when zoning started to come in. People said, we got to make sure that everything has continuity so we can have neighborhoods instead of a brick garage and then a nice house next to it. So some of what you're talking about is called conforming, non-conforming. There's got to be a lot line somewhere where there's going to be changes in zoning, the zoning line. Always look at the square footage first, because if the square footage isn't overly big for whatever house you're going to go out to see somebody about, it might not make any difference what the zoning is. It might make a difference of what you can do with it. Not necessarily subdividing, even though that's what we're talking about, but what you could do with it. So we're kind of getting off track a little bit on what we had Shawn here for, to give you an idea of setbacks and how that works. But you got the right mindset as far as what you're going to be looking for. But the first thing is, the zoning could be looked up. It's not always good through the MLS system. You're better off going on the town website, and it could tell you. And if you know what the R2 means, that's when you go to what Shawn showed you a minute ago. And then you can look up what R2 means, residential 2, residential 3. Every town is different. Look at Quincy. You can have a 5,000 square foot lot, 7,500 square foot lot. Shawn worked for the city of Quincy for years. There's a lot that goes on over there. That's why there's so much construction, because they did a lot of overlay. Every town needs money. And if they don't start taking some of their areas and doing these overlays, they can't keep going back to the homeowner and saying, give us more money, or the business owner. It doesn't work. That's why they're making all these changes. Anybody else? Well, Shawn, I appreciate coming on. I know you're a busy guy. I've been in and out of your office many times, so it's a busy place. And they do a good job. There's a lot of fellows that work with Hardy and Chi-Man, and they do very good in front of the board. So if you come across a piece of property and it looks like it's going to be buildable, or you have a client that doesn't know what to do, hopefully this helps you out, because you'll know a little more. I'm always here in the office to help out. And what I'll do is I'll just give it. You want to give out your phone number, Shawn, your office number?
Sure. It's 781-335-1464.
Don't call after midnight. He won't be there. All right. Thanks again, Shawn. I appreciate your help. Thanks for taking an hour out of your day.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So this meeting is over,
Thanks, Ed.
and it was good to see me, right?
It
Thank
was.
you.
Always, yeah.
The excitement of it all.
And it's only 10:55. I can call it a day.
You only had me for an hour today, Missy. Jeez.
Oh, I'm coming to the office. You have
You
another
are?
opportunity for a
Uh-oh.
meeting.
I'm gonna shut the lights on upstairs. I'll show you.
Have a good
Seeing
day.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you.